Hey guys, welcome to another edition of GamingNight. This is another episode of awesome board games in my collection, and today we're going to be looking at 221 Baker Street. Not only is this one of my favorites, but this is also one of my fiance's favorites as well. It's it's kind of similar to Clue, but you actually have to do a little bit more work than that. You can't you can hold your other players, but it's not as much. So you can explore without someone dragging you from one location to another. But not all locations are equal. So you might get a clue that is relevant, but unless you get the other parts of the clue, it's not going to help you that much. And then there's also red herrings and areas where you get no clue whatsoever. And you'll have different cases, like, and you have to usually solve more than one part. You might have to find a motive. You might have to find the killer and different things like that. So it'll just tell you solutions. Like, for example, we had one up. It was a killer, weapon, and murder, and you had to figure out what the solution was. And you go to different areas, and and they went to the apothecary, and it was sleeping pills. So you put down sleeping pills and stuff like that. But unlike other games where you basically are not allowed to write down the clue while you're looking at it. So you get like about a minute to look at the clue, and then once you put it down, you have to memorize what you read and put it down as soon as possible, so you don't forget. And each game you'll have a whole bunch of clues like these, and it might say something like "Who's behind it?" Clue. It's 4 parts, and it'll say part 3, the alphabet letter after Q, and you'll have to. So you'll say, okay, this is part 3 of 4 parts. So it's gonna be, you're gonna have to. It may not make any sense until you get all the parts. Sometimes you'll get the right part that actually makes sense. And it might say weapon clue rhymes with space, and you can be like, okay, that might, and it's a mini, and like you can say, okay, you're in a medieval, you're like in a museum, so it could be a mace. So there's all kinds of different types of clues, and this is the game board, and you will be rolling dice. So if you get really crappy dice rolls, it can hinder you a little bit. But you can sometimes solve if you're very observant of the clues that you get, and you can sometimes solve it if you get the right clues at the right time. But your die rolls can really hose you, but not in the part where it's not fun or anything. Because what's cool about the game is it's very story driven. Each one's a separate episode, so it's the clue. What I didn't like about Clue was the fact that you could drag somebody into the room if they're trying to get to something, and especially if it's you, it's really annoying. You're like, okay, I went here, and I got dragged into a room because they knew that room I needed to get some information, and it really is irritating. But these are all like story driven, and they've got play on words. They use corny like names for players, so it's kind of got the dry humor in here. Let's see if I can give you an example. Like Mr. Mac Noodle, Max Scribbler. And then, and you'll basically, and in the back it'll tell you what the location number will give you. So, apothecary will give you clue 239. So all the areas have different clues. So you're only going to get one clue from that area. So you know that once you've gone to all these areas, you get all the clues possible. but there's always at least one no clue or a useless clue. There's always, so you get that one useless clue on your first go, and everyone else is getting beneficial clue. You're going to be one step behind. So there's really no way to know. Now, sometimes paying attention to the story will help, though. Like, it'll say this crime scene happened in the pawn shop. So if you go to the pawn shop, you're more likely going to get a good clue. But as far as everything else goes, being in the right spots on the board will give you the one up over your opponents. And making sure you write down the clue. But like, even if you have the clues and if you don't piece the clue together right, you're not going to solve it. Because you could say, well, you think the motive was jealousy, but it wasn't jealousy, it was revenge. Then you're going to be wrong. So jumping the gun and trying to solve the case first without having it pieced together right. I remember there was one that was interesting. The way they do the game, one of the clues was a body of water. So you're thinking, okay, body of water, and then and another one was type of dessert. So it was like part 1 clue, part 2 clue. So you're like, okay, so dessert would be like, okay, you're thinking, okay, when was this? Like, okay, type of dessert, and then like later on in the game, you're like, oh, Jello, and then you got the body of water, C. So you put those two together, it's jealousy. So that clue was the motive. You're like, okay, and then like weapon could be, like stuff like that. So a lot of some of the clues are plays on words. So you've got to put the two together. They're like homonyms or something. Like, it's really weird, but it's kind of clever. And then some are actually puzzles that you have to solve in order to get solve the clue. So you're gonna be like, you'll get a clue like example like B equals Z. Okay, so B equals Z. So then if you get the rest of the other ones and try to figure out which one. So it's a matter of getting the right parts so you can figure out. So once you realize you get the code to solve the message or something, then you can go and solve it. So the game varies. Like, there's no story that's exactly the same. They did a really good job, like, to get you involved. So even if you don't win, it's the fact you got to try to piece together this, and then once you get all the pieces together and someone solves it, it's like you can have a discussion saying, okay, let's show me how you came up with all this stuff. So you can go through and piece it all together, and it really makes it an interesting thing. And then once you get through a couple of these sets, I mean, we got to get this online, and it's an older game, but there's places that still make the booklets. So you can. I forgot what site we went through. We ordered all. She's like, once we played most of these, she's like, okay, we got to get the rest of these. So we end up getting all the sets that are available for it, because to her it was really worth it. And once you get through a couple of these sets, going back to these, you're going to remember every little detail, because they're all going to blur in, because the fact is the locations are the same. So none of the locations of the game don't change. So as long as you go into it with that reasoning, there's a lot of replayability for it, because you're not going to remember every little detail of the case unless you got a photographic memory or really good at remembering a huge amount of details. So you can give it a couple months, you can go back to replay some of the older ones. So the replayability is pretty good on this too as well. And the fact that there's like a lot of expansions for this game, you'll be playing this for months, even years to come. As me and my fiance, we only finished the first two sets of this game, so we still have 3 through 9 to play. So if you like an old games like Clue and you want something a little bit more involved, try 221 Baker Street. You can't go wrong with this one. I mean, it's a step up from Clue. You do a little bit more work, and there's less hosiery of you hosing each other. It's more like just really good old case solving. So once again, thanks for watching. You guys have a great week.